1945, and the misery of Hiroshima heralds the arrival of the atomic age. 3 days later, Nagasaki suffers the same fate. Japan had been given the dubious honour of being the first and only country to experience nuclear war. In the race to rebuild post-war Japan, it seems some lessons from 1945 were forgotten. New buildings were constructed with no protection from the ravages of nuclear accident or attack.
With Ross Simons.
Moscow finally asks for help as the fires burn on at the site of the world's biggest nuclear disaster.
Reports an accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power
There's enough radiation released to kill thousands of people in the areas near the plant, but Western intelligence sources say the full...
But in 1985, the world was rocked by the events at Chernobyl. Suddenly, the horrors of World War II seemed so much closer. And oddly enough, it translated into a boom for the Japanese building industry. This is something you won't see in many other countries. A home exhibition centre where you can pick your new kitchen, new bathroom, and of all things, your very own nuclear fallout shelter. And this is the top-of-the-line model, designed by architect Kahaki Ishida. It's a prefabricated, dig-a-hole-and-drop-it-in home that doubles as a bomb shelter. This is certainly more luxurious than a concrete block. Of course, if it was a real bomb shelter, we'd be a few metres underground and there'd be no window. Mr. Hishida believes if you're going to spend so much money on a bomb shelter, you may as well include a few creature comforts. After all, after the Holocaust, this could be your only home. Mr. Hishida uses this model as his office. Others are being used as cafes, and one's even a barber shop. To protect it from moisture when it's buried underground, it's wrapped in submarine steel and concrete. Dozens of these shelters have been installed in Japan, nearly all of them since Chernobyl. Shizuku Miyagawa isn't typical of women in Japan. She's a single career woman who's looking after her own future. She's building herself a new home and work studio at a cost of nearly 200 million yen. That's $2 million. She's certainly picked a prime piece of real estate. It's just 2 hours from Tokyo and looks over the waters of Tokyo Bay. It appears to be a serene and peaceful place to set up home. This idyllic location is an illusion. The coast is dotted with nuclear power stations, and there's an oil storage facility just a few kilometres away. The whole area is prone to earthquakes and tidal waves. But despite all that, Miss Miyagawa's greatest fear is a nearby American naval base. Ships and submarines allegedly carrying nuclear missiles travel past her home at least once a week. That's too close for comfort. So beneath her dream home, Miss Miyagawa is building a shelter. She's more fearful of nuclear accident than Holocaust, and Chernobyl did nothing to allay her fears. The shelter will be equipped to provide accommodation for up to 100 people for 2 weeks. In the meantime, it will give refuge of another kind. It will double as a neighbourhood bar. It's impossible to determine just how many fallout shelters have been built in Japan in recent years, because the Japanese are reluctant to admit to owning one. Some worry that if their shelter becomes public knowledge, they'll be besieged by people seeking refuge. And the Japanese press in the past has emphasised the selfishness of the owners hoping to save themselves while their countrymen suffer. But no one can accuse Dr. Mizono of being selfish. Although he too fears another Chernobyl, he's building his shelter for an entire community. It's attached to his surgery, and when completed will function as an underground hospital. 25 people in one room for 2 weeks. It doesn't sound like a very attractive prospect, but it's better than the alternative. The occupants will use a chemical toilet, and water will be stored in buckets underneath the floor. But if you're down here for any length of time, this is what you'd be watching every day. It's a Geiger counter that tells you the level of radioactivity in the world outside. Those innocent days before August 1945 are gone forever. And it seems many Japanese citizens are determined not to be caught unprepared again. But these days it's no longer clear who the enemy is. Does the danger come from a hostile nation? Or is the biggest threat simply 20th century living? Are we facing a future where no new home will be built without underground protection?
That's all from this edition of Beyond 2000.